Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Morning.
Hi, Gina.
Good morning.
Morning, Judge.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm gonna also try to tie on with my laptop. I was having issues with it, so I'm still working on it, but I'm on my desktop, but my desktop does not have a camera.
All right. Well, we're all here. We're live. We're recording. Ready to go.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Why don't we go ahead and call our meeting to order? And if we could let the record reflect that we have Gina with us today. Welcome, Gina. We've gotten superintendent's email and we're expecting you today. So,
Good, thank you.
yes, ma'am. Let's see. We have a copy of our minutes from our last meeting of, I can't quite read that. Thank you.
24th. August
24th.
24th.
Yeah, if y'all look, like to look those over for any possible corrections or additions.
You know, I've reviewed and make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Judge.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Gina. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Boy, as we get into the meeting, Scott, let me welcome you and Jessica back from KLC conference. And of course, Andrew and Devin were able to attend as well. And I heard reports of some pretty valuable sessions. Did you all find it valuable?
Yes, absolutely. It was one of the more productive ones for me. I was able to attend a lot more sessions this time, and it's been a long 2 years. It was good to get back in the saddle with that.
Good. And Jessica, that was going home for you.
It was. I saw a lot of old friends.
Yeah, good, good. Okay. Scott, item 4 on our agenda is a review of the executive summary because the regulations are pretty long.
They are, and Jessica, I think Andrew and I both agree, has put together a great executive summary, and we will let her take it away.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting. I'm so excited. I think we're all excited to finally be presenting the final draft of the final version of these regulations for adoption today. But they are quite lengthy, so we knew there was no way that we could go through all 138 pages. So we wanted to put together some just overarching goals, what went into this, just as a refresher, because we started this conversation nearly 3 years ago now. I was actually going through some of the information about when we started, and we started the process in the summer of 2019. So that's how long we've been going through updating, revisions, and of course you had COVID in there, but it's been a very lengthy process. So as a reminder, the goal with the regulations was to create a taxpayer-friendly roadmap for how they could comply with the local tax rules and regulations. So that was our goal because often taxpayers tell us there's different barriers to compliance. One of those being that they don't understand or know how to read a local municipal ordinance, which seems fair. So the goal of this document is to create more of a black and white rule book for taxpayers, tax preparers to be able to comply with the occupational tax. And we feel like we've done that, not just with thorough explanations, definitions, but also really detailed examples of the most common issues that we see with compliance and the most common barriers. So you'll find that. And like I said, we've gone through this process of making sure everything that we're doing in the regulations line up with the ordinance, which also required that we make sure the ordinances were in alignment with statute and any legislative changes that have occurred. So there's been a lot of thorough vetting of all of the information in these regs, and we're confident that they are exactly where they need to be and that they're the most recent precedent on any of these issues that we're dealing with. So we also, back in June, if you remember, we opened this up for public comment for local tax preparers. We also sent it to the Kentucky Board of Accountancy for 30 days for any comments that preparers might have. We did receive some really good feedback. We didn't receive as much as we had hoped for, but the feedback that we got, we were able to make changes. We were able to simplify the penalty and interest abatement process to make it easier for taxpayers. So we did take all that feedback into the final product that's before you today for consideration. And so that's sort of the general overview. I would say that the goals for our agency, in addition to simplifying for taxpayers, are also to create that continuing goal of standardizing, modernizing, and creating transparency. Because now every process that we utilize as an agency is in black and white writing that will be publicly available to taxpayers and preparers. So there's nothing that we do that's not going to be written down for them to read. And that has never been the case for this agency. And so that's, I know for me, that was my main goal. And we had that discussion early on of what we wanted these to look like. And it was my goal that nothing be in the dark. Every single in the weed process is explained in these regulations. So I feel good about that. I think that's going to be welcomed for the preparers, whether they're local or not. And I hope that it will increase compliance, which will increase revenues, and it will decrease any kind of sense that we're doing something people don't know, how to comply with. So that's the kind of the gist of everything that we've been doing. Obviously, in 138 pages, there's a lot of information, a lot of specifics. And I've kind of, on this summary, you'll see I've broken them down into what we think were three of the biggest sort of chunks. The first being emerging or trending kind of controversial issues. That's where you're going to see us creating policies that are reflective of the post-COVID work environment, remote work, economic nexus, digital nexus, rather than relying on some of the old standard stuff, as well as being very clear about every issue that you find in these. So we've defined everything. We have elaborated on some of the most controversial aspects of occupational tax, and all of that would be there under the emerging compliance issues. Those are the ones you'll probably get the most questions on, I would imagine. So we wanted to set those outside for you and let you know exactly where you could find that material, because they're new, novel issues that are kind of still unfolding, and there's very little precedent for us to follow on those. So that's what that chunk represents. And then, of course, the second chunk, which I would say, I don't know about Andrew and Scott, but I would say the most work has been done on that second chunk there, the newly implemented processes, policies, and procedures, because for every one of those that are in the reg, we also had to bring before you a separate policy to get you to approve that. In some cases, it meant ordinance amendments. So that has been the bulk of the work, because none of these policies existed in writing prior to us starting the regulation. So we've kind of had to get all of this together, draft it, get you to approve it, implement it, practice it, then put it into the regs. So that's what that second chunk is there. And then finally, I would just say that we've also wanted you to know where we hope to go, what our next projects we hope to have are. And so those are laid there with the future recommendations. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but the biggest step towards being able to get all of that done is the adoption of these regulations. So that's kind of the overview of it. I mean, I don't know if there's specific questions that you had, or if you have a specific policy you want to talk about. Of course, I'm happy to answer that. Andrew or Scott can also answer that. Or if, as questions come up, you can certainly send them to us.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. It's an impressive piece of work. I think our standard in government is very simple to state, but very difficult to achieve. And that is give everybody one set of rules and then ask everybody to follow one set of clear rules. And easy to say, difficult to achieve. This meets that standard. For my purposes, when I was reviewing it, Jessica, it was really helpful to see all of the new, both under emerging and recently implemented. A lot of this has been had been created from whole cloth. It's literally it's literally been stitched together and made.
We started, so I just was gonna say, we started with a 4-page document. So when Scott handed me the original regulation draft from the prior director, it was 4 pages. So now it's 138. So we definitely have had to create policy for sure.
Yeah, I don't have any specific questions about any of the policies or where they're worded, Jessica. Gina or Judge?
Not at this time. I appreciate the efforts, that's for sure.
No, it looks fine to me.
Well, if questions come up, you can always, even if it's a specific policy, I'm happy to answer Andrew Scott as well, to let you know why we decided to move in the direction that we did or what precedent supported that. I think after all this time, we're very confident with what we've adopted, in that what we've put here for adoption, it meets the most recent legislative changes, as well as what everyone practically is doing across the state. And if it needs to be changed, of course, we will update anything that's necessary.
Yeah.
Scott, I would think this meets one of the pretty major milestones that you had in mind for the
Yes, sir.
agency.
Yes, sir. That's correct. And I would only add 2 things here. Number one, even going back to my 8 years at Louisville Metro, the tax professionals that I've dealt with, including folks at the Kentucky Society of CPAs, they really welcome this. It makes their jobs easier, and it also is, in its totality, helps to remove the barriers that often come with what I call the common pushback areas, where a tax return is prepared incorrectly and we have to send out a notice, which requires a response, sometimes by a tax professional. And if they have the proper roadmap in front of them, that will hopefully eliminate a lot of that, which can be very costly and time consuming for both the tax professionals and the taxpayers, as well as our agency. So I think we really hit the mark there. The only other thing I would add, Jessica, if you want to briefly go through the future recommendations, that's kind of a sneak peek of coming attractions. Like when you go to the movie, these are things we'll be bringing before you in the future months and years ahead as we progress on our path. So Jessica, if you'd like to hit a couple of the high points, or maybe all of them. There's just 5-6 bullet points there.
Yeah, well, they're all very complicated. That's why there's only 6.
Yeah.
So of course, one thing, and this is not even so much me, I would involve all of the jurisdictions and well beyond what I do here, but one of the first things that we want to do is engage in a comprehensive ordinance review, resolution review, to make sure that there's no changes required to meet the most recent precedent for occupational tax. So that obviously would involve the city, the county, and then going through the resolutions with the school board as well, to make sure that we're where we need to be on that. That's a big project. We also hope to eventually present policies related to simplifying the process for taxpayers, reducing the tax burden for filing for some certain categories of taxpayers through the adoption of some type of threshold that would limit nexus of filing requirements. We don't have that to present to you, but that's one thing we feel would be very valuable for taxpayers as well as tax preparers, because we have so many accounts where the effort definitely exceeds the revenue. And so we want to evaluate that, and we hope to present those in the future. We also have some very big policies that we want to implement and adopt that are going to take a lot of time and research, including a 1099 policy, as well as a nexus questionnaire to reduce the complexity of understanding when a person has to file and when they don't have to file. We've also, of course, this regulation is the first big step for what I think would be my biggest next project, which is to create a comprehensive internal operating procedures manual for our staff. This would be the basis of that. We have never had that. And so we definitely want to have that, not just for our general operational standpoint, but for each specific position at our agency. And that will help us create modernization and standardization in the way that we operate internally, as well as how we deal with the public. So that's another big project that we hope to do. And then, of course, one that we've been working on the entirety of this 3 years is getting us ready to begin civil action, which Andrew and I have met separately on, we have all of our templates adopted, and that very well, our goal would be to file at least one course of action by the end of this year. And we've already met to kind of hone down who we think that should be, what we think that should be. And we've been working for the past several months to kind of go through our list of the biggest account debts and prioritize those. So that's what I would hope in the next year to 2 years, we're going to be doing all of those different things, but each of those is a very complicated process that will involve multiple different approvals from the commission. But that's where I see us going. That's where Scott and Andrew and I have agreed that we need to go and what our next steps need to be. But it's all really good, but with the same goals of standardizing, modernizing, and creating more transparency in the way that we operate.
Good stuff. I really like the idea of reducing burden on taxpayer. So I think we do have a bunch of instances where the effort to comply with the Revenue Commission generates a pitiful few dollars.
Oh, absolutely. And, the great thing is we have so many models across the state for where that has been implemented, whether that's creating a compensation-based threshold or a period of activity threshold. So if you're not here more than 3 days, or if you don't exceed this amount of revenue, there's lots of different options for that. We're still trying to figure out which one we think would be most applicable for this jurisdiction based on the activity here. But some things that come to mind, the flea markets, people that file Schedule Fs for their farms but never report activity. I mean, there's just a lot of different categories where we might have hundreds to thousands of accounts that really are not, when you do the cost benefit, it's not worth our time, but because of the ordinance, we currently have to enforce that. So that will definitely be a part of that, simplifying it for taxpayers, and they'll be happy and we will be happy, because those always are the hardest accounts to get compliance for as well. So it'll be good. It'll be great.
And those things just make people mad. They don't get us. They don't get us anywhere, and they just make people mad.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad to hear you all are going to consider that, because
That's been on
there's some
my
people who
board.
need that relief.
Absolutely. And I think it will buy a lot of goodwill, and it will free up time for staff to be able to pursue things that are legitimate. And it just gets rid of what is kind of red tape for a lot of these filers. And unfortunately, we can't do that until we get the ordinance changed. So that's why that's the first priority, is to kind of create that review process and begin to implement those changes. So I think it will make everyone happy.
Yeah, because I think we have an obligation as the commission to if we're going to encourage you and support the staff in being more aggressive in policies and actions, then we need to make sure those are reasonable and focused where they do us the most benefit. So we have an obligation to do both sides.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So are we ready, Scott, then to have a motion and a second to approve these by the commission?
Yes, sir. That's where we are.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with their review? And if so, I would accept a motion that these be presented.
I would make that motion.
Thank
I'll
you, Judge.
second that.
And motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Jessica. That's a really solid start.
Great job, everybody. Yep, good stuff.
Yes, it's quite, you said the correct word, Mayor. It's quite a milestone for us.
Good. We appreciate that. Then moving right along, another big one, lockbox update.
Yes, this is just a verbal update. We have sent some to all three vendors some requests for clarification on pricing. And then once we get that back from all three vendors, we'll proceed to the review and scoring process. And we will have more on that to come in the future.
Okay, good. As we've talked about, it's a big step, but it's a real detailed process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, item 6, Scott.
So we have completed the initial review with CISA from the Department of Homeland Security. This was a cyber resilience review. It was just kind of a high level. He came here, walked through the building with us, and we sat down for about an hour and a half and went over some things. It's going to be a very comprehensive process. I'm very excited about it. But that's just step one. And I spoke to Patrick, your risk manager, at the city safety meeting yesterday, and you all are moving forward with this as well. And I think we're all in agreement. It's going to be a very positive step to take. Also, last week at KLC, I spoke with David Mims from VC3, formerly Sophisity, and they support this completely and are on board and willing to cooperate in any way. They've got other clients that are doing it as well. So we're definitely on the right path with this.
Good. Scott, it's been a very pleasant surprise. We knew it'd be a positive, but we were encouraged by the Kentucky League of Cities for several years to consider hiring a risk manager. And we had loss issues, we had premium issues because of that. And but it's been a real pleasant surprise about how helpful this position has really been. And things that kind of keep you up at night, he's there thinking about and has a pretty good explanation for you.
Yes, he does. He's really covering all bases. I'm very impressed with the 2 meetings I've attended. He's pretty much covered everything as far as I can tell.
Good. Okay, item 7, we have abatement request.
We do, and we have 4 of them this month. It's been a while since we've had any. We have 3 denials and 1 approval for you today. So taxpayer A here, this one has requested abatement of $389.30 in late filing penalties. This is for multiple years here, 2016 through 2021. Essentially, the taxpayer provided a narrative which chronicles the many ways they believe they're a strong supporter of our community, as well as a leader in our community. While they are apologetic that they failed to timely file and pay their taxes, our policy clearly states that the burden is on the persons or entities engaged in business activity to do their due diligence and understand and comply with all filing deadlines. So it's our determination to deny the abatement request as the taxpayers failed to establish reasonable cause. Again, this was for $389.80. You can see the penalty and interest splits there, what they would have been in the city and county. And again, this is on net profit for multiple years, and it's our recommendation to deny this one. The second one here, this is only a $75 late filing penalty for tax year 2021. Again, it is a net profit return. I've got 2017 here. That is incorrect. It's 2021. Sorry about that. They cited inability of relevant business records. Typically, that is a viable, reasonable cause, but that's business records usually because their tax preparer and has gone out of business or has passed away, or their business records were burned in a fire, something along those lines. In this case, the taxpayer cited an inventory list that they are required to provide to their tax preparer as what was being missing. So this was really on them. They were ill prepared to file their returns. They also filed an extension with the IRS, but failed to submit a copy to us, which our ordinance requires. So again, it's our determination to deny this request based on failure to establish reasonable cause. And again, this was just $75, $25 per jurisdiction. The third one is the approval. This taxpayer's requested abatement of $1,084.38 in payroll late filing penalties and interest for 2 tax years, 17 and 18. Taxpayer states that she's enduring extreme financial hardship due to a divorce that left her with no spousal support and 5 children to care for. Taxpayer has also provided a copy of her divorce decree as evidence. It is the staff determination to approve the abatement request in full as the taxpayer has established reasonable cause due to extreme financial hardship due to circumstances beyond her control, in addition to, as an agency, doubt as to collectability, which is per our penalty and interest policy. So we're recommending approval of the total amount of this abatement request. That's $541 in penalties, $543.18 in interest. The total P&I for the city is that we would be abating is $488.19. The county's $596.14. And there is no school board component to this. And again, this is the one we are recommending approval on. The fourth and final one is a taxpayer request for penalty and interest abatement for 2015 net profit tax year totaling $3,354.85. This taxpayer also checked unavailability of relevant business records as a reasonable cause. However, the taxpayer provided two narratives that instead lay the blame for the filings on the unprofessionalism and poor performance of two different tax professionals. And while that may very well be true, it fails to establish reasonable cause for abatement because per our policy, the filing a tax return and the payment of the penalties and interest and taxes are both personal non-delegable duties of the taxpayer. Reasonable cause is not established by merely showing that they relied on an employee, accountant, attorney, payroll service, or other entity who failed to file a return. So it's our determination based on that to deny this abatement request due to failure to establish reasonable cause. Again, $75 of that is penalties. Most of it is a substantial amount of interest. You can see the city, county, and school board portions on that net profit return for 2015, and that is a denial. So those are the four that we have at this month, and if anyone has any questions on any of them, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thanks, Scott. Any one of those commission member would like to look at in more detail? And
Looks good.
if there's not, I assume we could just have a motion to accept staff recommendation on these, Scott.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to accept staff recommendation on penalty and interest abatement as presented.
Thank you, Gina.
Second that.
Thank you, Judge. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries, Scott.
Thank you.
And you have item, eyes are bad this morning, approval request for Robert half conversion fee.
That is correct. Since one of our employees went out on medical leave last year, we have been using an individual from Robert Half. He has turned out to be an outstanding tax compliance analyst for us. Above and beyond the tax knowledge and the skills he brings to this, he is also quite a tech guru. I thought I was pretty good with Excel spreadsheets. He's a master. He has fulfilled his obligation with Robert Half, and we've come to the time when we can convert him over and make him a full-time Revenue Commission employee. Robert Half has a conversion fee when that happens, which is typically 50% of the first year annual salary based on the offer that we made. Due to our relationship with Robert Half, I was able to negotiate that down to 30% of the first year annual salary. So what I'm requesting here today is to make a one-time payment to Robert Half once they submit the invoice for $17,100, split 40-40-20, obviously between the jurisdictions, and to also do a one-time additional deposit in our collections account, just like we did a few months ago for the increase of almost $10,000 in the cyber premium, and similar to what we did last year when we did the mini split in our server room, the portable air conditioning unit, which was about $7,000 additional dollars. So it is $17,100. It's a one-time payment, and it will be in addition to the monthly deposit we make from the jurisdictions, an additional deposit to cover that as well. And both of those will happen sometime in October after we've converted him over to a city employee and made the final payment of services for his salary to Robert Half.
Any questions? Scott, I think we have had some outstanding luck with temporary agencies. We've used them in some pretty unusual ways. In fact, we've even hired executive staff via a temporary contract and then made them full-time and paid the conversion fee. So it's just good business. You know exactly what you're getting, and the conversion fee is probably a bargain in today's employment market.
Absolutely, I agree completely. In the environment we're currently in, it's an excellent opportunity for us.
And I'll just say, and Scott and I have talked about this, because the position was already approved, obviously, he is so far epically beyond what we could
Oh.
have gotten or have gotten in the past when we've opened this position up, that he is such a great addition for sure in all of the ways.
And it's a good fit. He wants to be here. He fits in with our group well. The soft skills and everything. He's already an invaluable member of our team. This is just going to make it official.
Thank you. Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Judge.
I'll second.
And Gina seconds. All in favor, aye. And
Aye.
none are opposed, I think. So.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for that.
That carries, yes, sir. Scott, your general discussion items?
Yes, general discussion. So we do have a new project on KEDFA here. I want to present to you Noble View Veterinary Clinic. Now, this is a Kentucky State Business Tax Credit. I don't believe there's any local component to this. I'm not familiar with it. It's unlike the projects with Toyota and International Crankshaft where there's an employee wage credit. It's not like that. You can see the dollar amount is pretty small, but that was approved in August. When I ran the reports in July, this was not on this. So they kind of snuck this one in here on me, but Georgetown Auto Sales also got one of these state business tax credits. I think it's towards state income tax, if I'm not sure, not too familiar with that project, but they did pop up as new ones within the past few months for Scott County. And I did want to present that to you to keep you in the loop on what's in the pipeline and what's going on here.
Thank you. I wouldn't, Judge, I hadn't heard anything about the auto sales doing any incentives.
Me neither.
So I'm sorry, were there more questions on that?
No, sir.
I'm sorry. Thought I heard something. Okay. Here. Bear with me here. Here's our tax incentive. Speaking of tax incentives for July, for this particular employer, nothing new there. Again, they're still on the flat fee payout on that, but this July payment has been made. Any questions on that this month?
No questions for me.
Not hearing any. Okay. Okay, so the monthly tax collections for August, as we talked about last month, I know there was some heartburn when the July numbers were down significantly due to not receiving our large payroll filing for the month, but then we received 2 payroll filings in August. So we're way up year over year, almost 2.3 million or 66%. The city's up over $1 million, which is almost 73%. County's up year over $1 million, which is almost 65%. And the school's up 172, almost 173,000 at 48%. So those are the August collections, a big bounce back. And because of the way we talked about this with the payroll provider, how they do this filing, I think this is a more helpful spreadsheet. I've created a new one for fiscal year 2023. You can see what 1 month with no Toyota payroll looks like and a month where 2 Toyota payrolls come in. So where we are for the month is 425, or for the fiscal year, we're already up $425,000 in total. So that's a good start for the new fiscal year. Again, last year, 2022, we ended up as the largest collections year in the 18-year history of the Revenue Commission with over $48 million collected. So it's good with this strong start, at least in the first 2 months. So and the city's up 150,000 in aggregate collections. The county's up 223,000, and the school board's up 51,590. So I'll be sharing this with you every month, so you'll know where we stand for this fiscal year. And this is the pattern moving forward. We'll see, 1 month with none, one month with 2 payrolls, and then a normal month. And that pattern is likely to continue throughout the fiscal year. So,
but you think every other month it gets out of whack, and every other alternating month it gets back in balance?
yes. Yes.
Okay.
And then the one we'll get in September should be a normal one where neither one of those things happen. So it'll be no payroll, 2 payrolls, 1 payroll. That's the pattern.
That'd be interesting to watch unfold.
Yes. Yes. So going back to general discussion, that provides more context than just the monthly year over year now that we're in that kind of odd payroll pattern. Here's the new accounts with August included. We're currently sitting at 865 new accounts opened with the Revenue Commission. This same time last year, we were sitting at 801. So pretty good increase. We're averaging 108 new accounts open and 73 closed for the first 8 months. You can see the actual August numbers here. We had 102 new businesses registered. And we closed 44 accounts. And you can see the August, the same month in the prior year, we were at 70 and 82. So that kind of gives you a good sense of the new accounts and the closed accounts, where we are so far in this calendar year and how we compare over the same month last year. Any questions on that data? So again, another example where as far as new accounts created, we're on track to beat last year. And then the last bullet point I have here is I just wanted to thank you for COLA a couple of weeks ago. You allowed us to close the office and the whole staff to go to Lexington for the conference. I think it was a good conference. We got a lot out of it. I know that's a big ask, but it doesn't come around very often. Next year, we're going to be in Henderson, so we won't be doing that. The year after that, we're in Campbell County. We won't be doing that. And the year after that, we're going back to Louisville. So we won't be doing it there either. But when we do have the opportunity, it's a very cost-effective way for everybody to get some really good training. So I just wanted to thank the commissioners again for allowing us to do that.
Good. It's beneficial.
And I also want to put one more thank you in here. I am now an official graduate of the Kentucky League of Cities Local Leader Academy. We had our graduation ceremony at KLC last week and presented our group projects. And I just wanted to thank you for supporting me and participating in that. I think it was an outstanding experience, and I would encourage anybody at the city that would like to do that. I'd be happy to talk to them in detail. Feel free to give them my number if you have anybody you're interested in doing that might benefit from that. I'd be happy to talk to them one-on-one about the time commitment and the travel commitments, things of that nature. But I found it to be highly beneficial.
Good, good. Scott, that's a relatively new designation from KLC, isn't it?
It is. We are the inaugural class. They have never done it before, so we're the first ever. They only opened it to board members this year, and they admitted that we were the guinea pigs. So apparently we passed the test. So moving forward, the plans are to open it up to all city employees statewide who want to come to the KLC Local Leader Academy, and applications, I think we'll probably start seeing stuff on it in October, November would be my guess.
Good stuff. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's see. Any other general discussion points, Judge or Gina? Anything you'd like to bring up today?
I appreciate all the work and effort.
Thank you for simplifying it.
Thank you. I know
Yeah.
taxes give everybody a migraine,
They
including
sure
us. Including us.
Scott, I wanted to let you and Jessica know I have had a brief conversation with the judge, and then I had a little bit longer conversation with the superintendent about the possibility of us convening a rare joint meeting of the Scott County Fiscal Court, Scott County Board of Education, and Georgetown City Council for the purpose of having our legislative bodies have a presentation about Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission and its growth, its activities, and just the way you all do the work that brings in most of the county's revenue, most of the city's revenue, and a chunk of the school system's revenue. Judge, when Billy and I had a moment to talk about it longer, we thought it could be something after the election. This is intended to be about governance and not politics. But perhaps sometimes in that time frame after the election, before the holiday season gets completely away, I think it'd be a good experience to convene those three bodies to order, to learn more about what the Revenue Commission does and be able to ask questions.
We'd be happy to do that and stand ready to do so.
Good. There's people should know what's going on here, and there's a good story to tell. So our court and school board and council, I just thought it'd be good for us to get together and talk about it. So we
I
can
agree.
talk about
In 6 years ago, when I came here, there was a lot of clouds, let's say, surrounding the Revenue Commission operations. And I think we've righted that ship, and it's time to tell the other story now.
Yeah. So Gina, if you'd let the superintendent know, we went ahead and at least discuss this in a meeting, and the judge and Billy now get together with Scott and figure out when that Herculean task would finding a meeting date that would suit that many different people. But I'd say we'll just pick a date and hope for the best.
I'll be happy to share.
Thank you.
Happy to try to help in any way.
Thanks, Judge. Anything else to come before the meeting today? Andrew?
All set.
Okay.
Well, our next meeting would be Wednesday, the 26th. Judge, Keiko is in November this year. Is that correct? So that won't be a conflict this year?
Don't think so.
Okay.
All right. If that is it, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Thank you, Judge.
I'll second that.
And we'll vote with our mooses. I'll see you all later.
Thank you all so much.
Thank
See you
you.
next month.
Bye.